Hi, everyone. It's Candace Craw Goldman, and welcome to another episode of Quantum Realms 2022. And this is going to be a fun episode. Please help me welcome my beautiful friends, Will and Allison Brown. Dr. Allison Brown is a best-selling author and a Beyond Quantum Healing practitioner. And Will Brown is an internationally known trance channel. Welcome.
Hey, great to see you.
It's so great to see you guys. I'm really looking forward to this. So this year's theme in Quantum Realms is integrity, power, and truth. And I contacted Will and Allison and I said, hey, how about we ask the collective what they think about the theme this year of our gathering? And you did a channeling on that. And we're going to listen to that recording here in just a few minutes. But before we do, I wonder a little process thing, if that's okay. I wonder if you kind of know the project coming up like that, like you may have, unless Allison kept it from you.
No, in this case, because this was so specific, just like I handle a higher self or maybe an animal channeling, I like to know just the surface level what it's about. So she gave me the 3 words, and that's kind of my entry point when I enter into trance. That way, for my team, it's a focal point, and that's where we started off from. Right.
Yeah.
So my question is, so before you guys sat down, did you know those 3 words? Did you hear those 3 words like hours or days before, or was it just right then, right there?
Just as we sat down, I said, we actually had the discussion. She said, well, normally I don't tell you. And I said, well, this case, I want to know. It's a good entry point because it's a specific focus and a specific intent. And it was right at that moment. And I just took a couple breaths with those words as an intent. And that's where that's where the message came from.
Super. So, because my question would have been if you all would have discussed it, say a couple days prior or whatever, because, I did contact you and we set up the schedule for it. Mm-hmm. I always wonder how much the conscious mind might have tried to address those issues. And I guess that's why you do it this way, right?
This is correct. I try to keep myself as clear as possible of any information prior to the session. That way I'm as clear as possible when the information does come through.
And I'm pretty protective. I don't tell them anything.
Even if I try, it's on lockdown until the moment of. So, yeah.
Well, I've gotten to know both of you so much better in the last couple of years, and I continue to be impressed by the skills and knowledge you both bring to the metaphysical spiritual community. Not TMI, I don't think, but I actually had Will do my higher self channeling not terribly long ago. And wow is still the way I feel about that. And I've gone back to that several times and I'm still pondering some of it and feeling, a deep sense of connection with some of your information. And it's been very helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you.
It was a privilege. Yeah, it really was.
Well, it was super great to work with you all in that way. And I highly recommend anyone out there who might be interested in doing that. It's a fantastic experience. So let's just start with one more thing. The group or the presence that's coming forward to speak on our theme this year, you call the collective. Would you like to talk just a little bit about who the collective is to people who may not have been exposed to your work before?
Sure. There are many collectives, and for myself, the collective consists of Enoch, Raphael, and Michael. And that is my primary 3, and Source comes in. So, they've been with me for quite a while, and that's who I was introduced to when I first started channeling, and that's who remains with me when I guess the intent is to have the collective come through. And I feel their presence settle in as I start my breathing process. And once they settle in, it's really their show at that point. And I step aside and let them do their work.
So for those who might be listening, who wonders what it might feel what it might feel like for them to settle in, can you describe that? Is that a physical sensation for you?
Absolutely. So as I go through my breathing exercise, in that moment, my energy begins to shift, and as I'm talking about them right now, I can feel them kind of knocking at the door. I'll say, I liken it to if you could imagine yourself taking a seat in a stadium, and you've got tiers of rows of seats. That's almost like right behind me on my shoulders, and they each take a spot. They each have their own separate spot vibrationally across my shoulders, and I feel them settled in. And I know that when they're all seated, that's when my conscious self steps aside and they present themselves. So it's a physical feeling. I feel the energy starting to well up and starting to, I'll say, become present. And once that happens, then it's almost like I visualize themselves taking a seat, and when they're all seated,
Lights out.
that's it, and that's when the presentation starts.
Oh, I love that so much. Okay, I'm only going to ask a couple more questions.
Sure.
Sorry. I'm so curious. So when Dolores comes hanging around and wants to communicate, it's always in the same place. Always, always right there.
Mm.
So just for fun, if you want to, and you could you point to where they are, like who's where? And you don't have to if you don't want to, but
No, absolutely. I mean, the way I visualize it, Enoch is always right here on my right shoulder. Source is generally right above me, right kind of back here. And then Michael and Raphael, sometimes they'll switch spots, either right next to Enoch, or both of them will sit over here on this shoulder. So it'll be kind of, they switch it up, because not Michael and Raphael don't always come in together. So it might be just Michael and it might be just Raphael. But Source and Enoch are primary. They're always in place. So,
I know that we've never really talked about this before, but in the session I had with Dolores all those years ago, in the point in the QHHT, it wasn't even called that back then, but the point in her process at the time where you begin to describe a beautiful place, right? And then she asked you to get up on a cloud. From that cloud, she didn't even finish the induction, because Raphael and Michael went on both of my shoulders and took me by the arms like this.
mm-hmm.
And for you to talk about them being right there, it gave me goosebumps anyway.
That's neat. I hadn't heard that story before.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Wow. Yeah, it's very comforting to know that when they step in, and I can, for all better purposes, exit my body, and they're there. It's a very humbling and I'm very honored to have that happen. And even as I'm talking about it, I feel that emotion of them, taking part, and being here. So it's really, really wonderful.
Sure. Okay. Well, with no further ado, let's present your channeling. And this was done just a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go.
Enjoy.
Just take a cleansing breath. Welcome. The collective is here for your information, knowledge, and love. And for this moment, Sit and experience the vibration. Sit and absorb the vibration. For it is the vibration, it is this frequency, that is where all of the knowledge, all of the understanding, the healing resides. This is what your energetic presence seeks. So allow yourself to sit and experience this vibration, this frequency. If you have questions, please ask.
Thank you so very much for your presence. This year's Quantum Realms 2022 conference that's being hosted and coordinated by Candace Kroll-Goldman has a theme of integrity, power, and truth. I'd like to hear the collective's perspective on that theme, if you would, please.
For each word that has been provided for this theme has its own, very own frequency, structure, placement. For you must understand where each and every one of you are. Not physically present where you are, but energetically present where you are. Do you align with each of the vibrations, each of the frequencies of these words? Where do they reside inside of you? Many of you have been challenged by many of these words over the last cycle, the last, as you would say, year. But for this cycle, this coming year, this present year, where do these words reside with you? Where do their frequencies connect, intertwine, intersect, become who you are? For as you sit with each one of these words, understand its frequency, understand its vibration. Do not take them as a whole. Do not take all three words as one, but sit specifically with each one separately. Allow yourself to be immersed in its frequency. Where does it sit with you? Where does it begin to unfold for you? What does it uncover for you? And what lesson blooms from its core? For this vibration that you will begin to feel for each one of the words will begin to open itself and reveal itself in the inner sanctum of your being. And allow this vibration and allow this to open for you. Allow the struggle to be present with each one as it begins to reveal itself, as it begins to uncover those things, those thoughts, those understandings from the past. Do not take the words lightly. They are not light words. But allow them to begin to uncover what needs to be revealed. And sit with the uncomfortableness of it. This is where the great revealing will take place. For this revealing is where you will then emerge. For each one of the words itself will be this blossom in front of you. Each one holding a vibration, a color, an experience, a smell, a sound. Each one separately for each one of you. And allow yourself to grow with its own experience of its own purpose, its own understanding, and its own healing. And when it is all revealed to you, you will understand your placement. You'll understand where you reside energetically. What do you align with? What do you align and not align with? Are you serving your purpose? Are you exploring your calling? Are you expanding your energy? That is what is to be known.
Thank you very much for those wise words. And so when we take those three words, they seem very similar. Standing in our power and standing in our truth in order to act with integrity. What do you see as the difference between those three words? Because subtly they are quite similar.
Power, truth, integrity. One can stand within each one of those words. Yes, to your ears and your understanding, they are quite similar. But the differences lie in this. Power itself. Power in itself. Energetically, where does that sit? Where is that around you? What is that for you? From the human perspective, power is something you either gain or it is something you give away. But from the human side, it is only a human interaction. But power is greater than that. At the core of your essence is the power of the divine, the purity of the divine. If one were to fully be revealed the power of that divine essence, there would be no longer a need to be in the physical body. That is the challenge that you have accepted in this physical presence. It is to keep that full divine power just at a point at which it will not be fully revealed until the transition point. That is the purpose of being in a full, dense body, the human body. You've accepted that challenge. Many of you get glimpses of this, but it is not sustainable. That is the divine, that it is. Truth. The words that you speak, the actions you take, again, from the human perspective, they are just words, they are just actions. But truth, where is your truth? Where does it lie? From which direction in the quantum field do you gain your truth? There is not one truth. It is all one truth, one existence in amongst all of the quantum realm. So what you are experiencing at this particular point, this experience as this human, is a truth. But as you lay your head down and you put yourself to sleep, you may experience another existence. That in itself is a truth. Enter into meditation. Depart from your body. Experience another truth. So it's not to say you have one truth, but you have one truth. It is the existence of everything, the existence that is all around you. So what you speak and what you do, what you think, is for this experience. But understand where it comes from. You can bring in the truth from all of the other existences, all of the other entanglements, and bring that in to this existence and begin to speak a new truth, a new understanding. Integrity. That is quite an interesting word, integrity. What is integrity? That is, again, a human aspect. It is a checkpoint along your existence. For if you understand your existence beyond your human being, the need for integrity does not exist. This is purely a three-dimensional aspect of the human physical being, a checkpoint along your existence. This is something that is put in place to have a checkpoint of sorts, to say, is what I'm doing fully in alignment with my thoughts, my actions, my power, my truth? Is it all aligning accordingly and how it should be? Or am I operating outside of that understanding? But one might ask, isn't it deeper than that? Does not integrity also cross the barrier into the energetic realm? But once you cross into the energetic realm, no matter the dimensional plane you're on, it will be greater than the dimensional plane that you are currently in. And in the higher dimensional planes, there isn't a need for integrity. For you've crossed into an upper level chamber of understanding, equality. You understand it at a much higher level. But here, this experience, there must be checks and balances put in place. And that is one of them. So allow yourself to understand the placement in which you put yourself in your integrity. Are you fully aligned with your words, your actions, your power, and your truth? Do they all align and merge together to form this balance, this integrity with others around you?
So very beautiful, thank you. And so lastly, why is this theme seemingly even more important in 2022, in this cycle, in this year, than it ever has been before?
For what you have witnessed over the past several cycles is a disruption in many thought patterns, in many understandings. For where you have put your power, your truth, and your integrity may have all been in separate compartments. You would have acted a certain way at a certain time with a certain individual, and another time and another individual in another way. But set aside what is taking place, the chaos, the disruptions, and place yourself into a new understanding. This understanding is one that you must begin to integrate into. For there is much discussion. There is much discussion about the presence of a new earth, a presence of a new existence, a change that is upon you, and that there is. As you begin to merge and align with all three, this is what is going to shape and form a coalition of all energetic beings. As you begin to align this process, as you begin to align all of these understandings, many of you understand the individual pieces. Many of you have integrated pieces, but not all three together. This is the cycle. This year is the cycle to integrate all three as a new part of your essence, your being. For what is taking place outside of your place on this planet, the chaos and the disruptions, that is going to continue. But as you begin to form this coalition of energetic beings standing in all three, that is the wave that will begin. The healing that will be involved with that wave. The awakening that will be involved with that wave. So this is the beginning of a new process, a new understanding. Some may see this as you would say, the new earth, a new beginning, a new place. It is an evolution of the energetic beings that surround this planet. So allow yourself this integration point, for it will begin to shine brightly in front of you. And you will begin to recognize all those that you are intertwined with, intersected with, entangled with, of this understanding of power, truth, and integrity in all that you do.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much to the collective for coming through tonight and speaking with us.
And thank you. As always, the collective is here for your information, knowledge, and love. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, so we got to hear from the collective on the theme of Quantum Realms 2022. And Will, my first question to you is, did you listen to this recording?
I have not. So it's quite interesting to, have that experience and then be present for it, and be able to. A best way to say it is, as that all takes place, you kind of drop back in, and little nuggets start to populate back in, and not a full remembrance of what was said, but just bits and pieces. So
He still finds it a little odd to listen to himself, and I guess it would be.
it's kind of strange listening to your own
Same
voice.
way our children can't listen to their dad either.
Mm-hmm.
It's not dad.
Well, yeah. And, even some people who do, quantum healing sessions, especially somnambulistic folk whose voice changes a little, they get a little.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a little odd.
Yeah, they have to adjust themselves to listen to that, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
So one of the first notes actually that I took about, this presentation by the collective was, interestingly enough, where do these vibrations reside within your own frequency, within your own, being? Where do these different words? kind of like we were just talking about, like, where do those presences reside around you? I think that's pretty fascinating.
Right. And that they have their own frequency, of course, each word individually. And for us to sort of sit with those and find out whether we're in alignment or out of alignment with each of those, and sit with the uncomfortableness of it, because that is where the information and the revealing is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think now's the time to start getting into alignment wherever we're out of alignment.
And I would say that, as you speak each one of those words and you sit with each one of those words and just have an intent, verbally say them, be in tune with your entire body and see where it wells, where it vibrates the most, and singularly dig into that, uncover it, and really dive into why you have a certain belief system behind each one of those words and where it's evolving to.
Mm-hmm.
I was particularly struck by the word uncomfortableness.
Mm-hmm. I was too.
Why use the word uncomfortable rather than comfortable? I know it's a little devil's advocate thing, but these words, at least to me, they're very hopeful. They're very strong. They define a lot of things about humans and how we define ourselves one way or another. And it made me think about the fact that they could be uncomfortable words for people to focus on, and maybe particularly so with what's going on in the world right now. But I thought it was a brand new phrase for me to imagine being uncomfortable. Like, it wasn't, where do these fit? How do these bring joy in you or whatever? It was, sit with where they make you uncomfortable. Can you speak on that concept?
That struck me also the first time I heard it. And then I had it transcribed and I reread it, and it made more sense as I was going over it a couple of more times. But I think, from what I understand, the point really is that, we're used to keeping ourselves in a state of comfort. I think we're afraid of being uncomfortable. We're afraid of, like, the shadow work and all of that sort of stuff. So where are we not living our truth? Where would we feel uncomfortable? In what kind of setting would we feel uncomfortable if we were talking about truth, or if we were talking about power? Where would we feel uncomfortable? And what they say at the end, if you recall, was in 2020, it's time to align all areas of our lives with each of those words, those vibrations. For instance, in some settings previously, perhaps you would act, in integrity. In other settings, maybe not. Maybe you don't mind telling a white lie in this scenario, but not in that scenario. So where are you not in alignment? And when you sit with that and you're honest with yourself, it could make you uncomfortable. That's kind of how I interpreted that.
I think that's a great way of looking at it. And, I know you didn't mean to say it, but you didn't say 2022. You actually said 2020.
Do you know how many times I've done that? That is so weird.
But you know what? This is this 2-year, this tooth thing that we're going through. And it's been 2 years of this. And how interesting. I think, you just set yourself back to how this all started. Where we are.
That is, I need to sit with that one, because I honestly have made that mistake so often.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
That is.
I apologize to the listeners, but that's for me to figure that one out, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it makes so much sense. As a matter of fact, not long ago, we are pre-recording this, even though it's running in April, we are pre-recording it. And it hasn't been too terribly long since we had Groundhog Day. And, all day long that day.
Groundhog Year.
That's what I said. I said to everyone who would listen, it's like Groundhog Year. It's Groundhog Day. It's like Groundhog Year. And then I started kind of freaking out in my head, like, could we be doing Groundhog Lives or Groundhog Epics or Groundhog Centuries or something? And then I got all weirded out and I'm like, stop it. Just
good point.
Yeah.
Thank you. You make me feel better.
Yeah.
About my faux pas.
But it's interesting because I think really we could do a lot of deep exploration by any of the words we choose to use, and sit with any word that brings you joy, the most joyful word you have, and strip it all back down to where it makes you feel uncomfortable. Why does it make you feel uncomfortable? And it's really gonna shed light on something that's really deeply in you that you need to shift and change. The shadow work, whatever you want to call it, but you can take the most joyous thing and really strip it down to where it makes you feel uncomfortable and why does it do that. And it's really to evolve yourself to the next level.
Some of what I wrote down here was it's the sound and the smell and the different qualities, and that's kind, if you push that idea, it becomes kind of synesthesia. What color is truth? What does power smell like? What's the texture of integrity? I mean, I love things like that. I know some people get annoyed by those kinds of thought experiments, but I actually think, coming from the world of the visual arts, I used to think in those terms all the time, to kind of translating, concepts or ideas into other things. And I'm not sure I'd heard the collective talk in that way before about.
No, this was an interesting channel. They said a couple of things that I had not heard before. And I didn't know we were going to get off on that tangent, but there's a 2-word phrase. I can't recall it now. It's the name of my friend Wendy's new YouTube channel, in fact. And so it struck me, but I've never heard him say that in the 3D or in trance. And these types of concepts, inner sanctum, that's the word. They said something about an inner sanctum. But anyway, the point being, they've thrown a few different curveballs into this that I had not heard before, or concepts that I hadn't heard them discuss before. And they've been doing that a lot more lately, is like sovereignty. We had a discussion in, I think, January about sovereignty, which Will does not really speak about the word in day-to-day life. It just came out of nowhere. So they're starting to cover new territory. And I thought this was interesting because it helps us to think outside the box, perhaps. Like you as an artist do think in that way, but a lot of us are very just sort of in this little box in the way that we think about things. And I think as quantum healers and practitioners, like, we like to get our clients using all of their senses to uncover this experience or this reality that they're having in the chair with us. And so I think it likens to that. I really enjoyed that phraseology that they used.
I did too. And in that same vein, I wrote down, when you were talking about truth, when you said, from which direction does it come? And I just thought, oh, I love that too. It's just it's absolutely another plot point, right? It's another, we're plotting all these different points. And I think it was one of the first times it was the Quantum Connector, a couple of times in some BQH sessions, I've actually, because it seems to be important to me in my dreams and some other musings, like, what direction are you facing? And I know it almost seems like, well, what does that matter? And somehow it's ended up mattering, at least a little bit, at least symbolically, maybe, or maybe I'm just really thinking in those terms too, sort of plotting yourself in space while these other things are going on.
But even on a more basic level, it speaks to your perspective and how often can just making a 90-degree turn or a 45-degree turn change your whole perspective and viewpoint and understanding of a situation or concept. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of points in that. And it's interesting that, you pick up on the nuances, obviously, of my channelings. And I've had several close friends of mine say that my channels, the expression of my channels have evolved from just 6 months ago. And I feel it in myself physically, personally, where I've become more aligned, more attuned, more, and as odd as this sounds, as much as I've been doing this, more accepting of the channel work. So, and I say this to anyone that's doing any practice, any modality, when you fully step into it and you accept it, it empowers it even greater. And to the other point of, changing your perspective. That's the one thing I find myself, even in my 3D life, everything that I do, and I've done this always, even as a child. And Allison can probably attest to this. My head is always on a swivel. I look at everything. I face in every direction all the time because there's so much to look at. There's so much to observe and see the different perspective in things. And I think that's, again, whatever words we choose to use and how we want to unravel them, but also just like Allison says, turn 90 degrees and look at something and look at it like a child, look at it in a new way, look at the world in a different view each time you look at it. No matter if you've looked at it 1,000 times, open your eyes differently and look at it as a different person. That's that evolution that we're all going through. That's where we need to be. We need to be looking at the things around us completely differently than we've looked at them before.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're doing that a little bit.
I hope so.
With some things out there in the world. Okay, so, we have these 3 words, right? Integrity, power, and truth. And many of the practitioners and the guests are focusing on different words. And even as I'm kind of orchestrating this and suggesting different things or talking to people about different things they're going to do for quantum realms, the word that I'm most aligned with right now is the word integrity. It seems to me to be something that's on my mind a lot. The word truth and the word power seem to be kind of bigger, and they can be co-opted and they can be applied to different ways. But the word integrity to me seems really, really personal. And I had those thoughts before, even your channeling, but I wrote this down word for word. You said there is no need for integrity in the higher realms because this is a human construct. And that possibly is my favorite thing about your entire channeling, but not in a bad way, not in a pejorative way for humans. It's like this thing that we're figuring out. And if we can all, think about it in a way, if we could all live in a completely integrous way, wouldn't that go a long way, I think, in bringing some positive changes to our world?
Excuse me. And along those same lines, everybody understands integrity. Power and truth, other people may have various definitions, but everybody understands integrity. And I like the fact that they said it is a human construct such that it acts as a marker for you to check yourself, checks and balances, which they don't need in the upper level dimensions. And so as we move through our own evolution, it gives us a chance to determine, as they said, whether your thoughts and actions are in alignment with your power and your truth. Power being your divine essence and truth being your truth. So no, it doesn't mean that your truth is going to be the same as mine, but if we're all acting with integrity to our own truth and we're all authentic in that way, then there's really not going to be the problem. Like you said, we can make strides towards global evolution and peace. But even with integrity, it doesn't mean that there is a set definition of right and wrong, and we all live within that right and wrong construct, because, to some degree there is, but a lot of things in that gray area are our own belief system. And if we can align with that and make sure our thoughts and actions are aligned with our belief and our power and our truth, I think that's going to help.
For sure.
Before I set this theme up for this year, I took myself to the dictionary, just an online dictionary, and I was looking at some of the different definitions of these words. And I was struck when I got to power, and I don't remember which dictionary I looked up, but it was like one of the first ways of defining that word was as in a force over that one person has over another. And I remember kind of going, well, sure, that's true. And we may even be talking about that in the way things are going in society and stuff. But I was kind of surprised it wasn't like further down the list on what power. It was like one of the first things that popped up was like, a force you have over the others. And I was like, wow, who wrote this dictionary, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because to me, it's like, who defined this word? But I guess we're redefining lots of things in the last couple of years, aren't we?
Mhm.
And those sort of go-to definitions are what have gotten us to where we are. Those are
Right.
what have gotten us into trouble, is those assumptions that we've made about these concepts.
But that goes back to each one of the words and where is it uncomfortable with you? So it's redefining what that word actually means. And it's not one true definition across the board for everyone. Everyone has their own definition for each one of these words, as well as many others, obviously, but for these words, these three words in particular.
I just loved it because I'd already felt, there's truth and power, and then there's this thing, integrity, and that's exactly what came through them. And I got very excited about that, to tell you the truth. Okay. And so then they talked about the year of 2022 and that these words are important for this year and the ending of one cycle and the beginning of the other because of the integration of these three, which of course then makes me think of things like unity and the whole idea of the separate aspects of beings who, well, anyway, I looked at it in a very complex way like that, sort of the integration of the three vibrational frequencies of these words.
I love that because what they said about, being in different settings and acting with integrity. When Will was first starting to channel, he still held down a regular 3D job, and it was a small startup company with highly intelligent but very 3D people, wealthy people. And so he was very careful about what he would talk about, and he couldn't be who he was. So he really wasn't acting with integrity in that way, in that setting. And so that's exactly what they're talking about. The chaos and the disruption in 2022 is such that it is compelling us to integrate all aspects of our being, all aspects of ourself, all aspects of who we are in every single setting and at every occasion.
It is. And once you understand that, and once you begin to align yourself with these truths and the integrity and the power and all of it, it will be revealed to you your next move. And that's what it was for me. Even though it had been 2 years since I started channeling, and right from the beginning, some of the very first channels were, he will know when it's time to step away from what he's doing. He will know. And I was in denial for that because I was like, oh, I'm not stepping away. But I would look for opportunities to populate, and nothing. And nearing right on the onset of the COVID situation, I saw what was taking place. My integrity then aligned with my truth, which was then misaligned with what was taking place. And that was the signal. That was like, this is it. This is the time. And I knew, and that's when I stepped away. And I think if many others rely on the fact that, once you're in alignment, all is provided for, whatever that looks like for you, it will give you the opportunities to move down your path with all three words right in the palm of your hand. And you'll be better for you.
I think a lot of people have shifted their perspective on some of those things since all this started. And I'm talking to you now, Allison, primarily. When did you join us at quantumhealers.com?
July of 2018.
2018. Okay.
Can't believe it was that long, right when the beginning of BQH course came out.
Yeah, just right then. So, the group itself was originally founded then 10 full years before that, when we were primarily, exclusively, I should say, is the better word to use, support for Dolores Cannon practitioners, because she was alive and we were working together. But it isn't even something I've thought about very much for a while because it's fairly rare. But back then we had a noticeable percentage of practitioners who would not use their real names.
Really?
Really? That was back in 2008 because they had to do or they felt they did. I am this person when I'm doing that kind of work. Family or doing the 3D life, I am this person. And I always understood it. And people make their own decisions. And no judgment here, but I found it disconcerting. And I am happy to say less and less of that now than ever. But from the beginning, we've asked for real names and real photographs on our platform because this hiding behind, the monikers and the symbols or pretty pictures of unicorns or whatever just was never a good look in my mind anyway. Let's just go ahead and be real humans. But I'm very happy to say there's a lot less of that now than there ever used to be.
That's awesome. And coming from I'm an educator by day. And so obviously it's a very conservative profession, and you don't go around saying, yeah, I speak to ETs every day and things like that. But I still find a way to live with integrity and not hide who I am without having to give every nuance about who I am and what I do on the side in what I consider my real work. And I find ways to use it too, which is fascinating because I work with students as a counselor. And students are drawn to me because they sense that without me even having to say anything or say much. And so they come and they reveal things to me that they would never say to anybody else. Like, I saw my mom in a cloud and my feet just walked myself to your office and I don't know why I'm here. And so we started talking about his deceased mother and for a high school student and, how he can communicate with her. And he was able to be honest with me that he does communicate with her. And I confirmed that and affirmed that with him and made him feel good about it. And stories like that are giving me goosebumps because that's why I'm there. And so I am able to live that. And I think we can all find ways. I get it when you're in a real traditional job where it's difficult to come out. There are ways that you can be honest with people and be honest with yourself.
Yeah. And I'm happy to know that you're Allison Brown in both places.
Yeah. Not a unicorn in one and a.
Right. Well, as we kind of wrap up our time together here today, there's one more thing that I wrote down that came out at the end of the channeling. And you talked about, and I wrote it down, the sentence exactly, I think the way you said it. You talked about the connection to and the assistance from the energetic beings that surround this planet. And I just wonder, for those who are just maybe stepping into this work, what in the heck might you mean about the energetic beings that surround this planet? What does that look like to you?
What do you mean?
We might have to make 3 segments out of that one. It's for me, for the short time that I've been doing this work, I've always known that there was something greater beyond this place. I didn't know the extent of it. Through the channeling work that I do, I've been introduced to my parallel lives. Parallel life is a Zeta alien, ET. Other aspects of myself, other dimensional aspects of myself. Archangels, obviously, guides, loved ones that have passed and transitioned. They're still with you. So when that statement is made, and again, these are one of those moments that kind of click off, and I believe the collective may have said this at some point. If you could observe the space around you as they do, as the collective does, the room is very crowded, right? The room that you sit in right now, watching this video, is very, very crowded. It's just that you're vibration is not tuned to every frequency that's around you. We'll take that out a couple layers out beyond the planet that we live on, just as crowded. If the room that you're in is crowded, I can only imagine what it's like everywhere else. So if everything is vibrationally connected, who really knows everything that's out there? I mean, my channeling work has evolved to a state at which if there's an intent for a vibrational being to come in, Allison has to make that intention as far as asking them to be present, and my vibrational alignment will shift and they'll drop in. So just fill the room. So.
And on a greater level, isn't that really what this ascension and human evolution is all about, right? We're all just kind of stepping up the frequency like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Allison and Will, thank you so much for being with me today. This was
Thank
you.
you.
It's always our pleasure to see you.
Absolutely.
And thanks to the collective for coming through and defining this year's themes for Quantum Realms 2022. Allison and Will, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yep. You can take a look at my my website, william-brown.com, or you can jump over to my YouTube channel, which is The Collective, channeled by William Brown.
And drallisonbrown.com with 2 L's and a DR. And palmandlotus.com is our combined services page.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And of course, you can find Allison as well on the quantumhealers.com directory page. Thank you for being part of our community. All right. Well, till next time in the next episode of Quantum Realms 2022. Thanks so much and see you next time.
Bye, guys.
See you, everyone. Bye-bye.